Yeah, hi everyone. Good evening. Welcome to the session. Uh, यस सो दोस्तों जैसा आप सब लोग जानते हो स्नैप का जो फर्स्ट स्लॉट है सिर्फ एक दिन बाकी है एंड बाकी के स्लॉट भी विद इन अ वीक 2 वीक्स वो आ जाएंगे राइट। तो इस टाइम पे आप सबकी कोशिश होगी कि स्कोर्स को कैसे मैक्सिमाइज किया जाए। काफ़ी सारे स्टूडेंट्स ऐसे मुझे दिखे जो कह रहे हैं कि सर 35 37 तक स्कोर्स जा रहे हैं लेकिन क्या हम 45 क्रॉस कर पाएंगे। तो ये सारे सवालों के जवाब देने के लिए मतलब बेस्ट कौन है जिन्होंने ऑलरेडी स्नैप को क्रैक किया है, जिन्होंने ऑलरेडी 99 प्लस परसेंटाइल स्कोर किया है। तो उनसे हम आज स्ट्रैटेजी समझेंगे। हमने पढ़ाई तो काफ़ी सारी करी है लेकिन कुछ स्ट्रैटेजी हमें सही इंप्लीमेंट करनी होगी। तो आज हमारे साथ है ग्लेन एंड तनीषा फ्रॉम SIBM। दे वर ऑल्सो दी 99 प्लस परसेंटाइलर्स इन स्नैप 2023। तो उनसे आज हम समझेंगे कि हमारी सही स्ट्रैटेजी क्या होनी चाहिए, कैसे हम वो जो स्कोर हमारे 35 37 40 पे अटके हुए उसको 45 प्लस लेके जाए। तो उम्मीद करता हूँ ये काफ़ी हेल्पफुल सेशन रहेगा आप सब लोगों के लिए। मैं जानता हूँ कि आप सब लोग एक्सपेक्ट कर रहे थे कि वो TSD और मिक्सचर एलिगेशन ज्योमेट्री वगैरह के सेशंस होंगे, लेकिन दोस्तों वो सेशन हम आने वाले दिनों में डेफिनेटली करेंगे। लेकिन उसके साथ में जो भी अपॉर्चुनिटी हमें मिल रही है, जैसे ग्लेन और तनीषा आज अवेलेबल थे, तो उनसे भी समझना ज़रूरी है कि क्या हमारी स्ट्रैटेजी होनी चाहिए, कैसे हम स्कोर को मैक्सिमाइज कर सकते हैं। तो यस, ये वीडियो को लाइक और शेयर करना मत भूलना और इसको आखिरी तक जरूर से देखना। सो वंस अगेन ग्लेन एंड तनीषा, थैंक्स फॉर ज्वाइनिंग अस एंड वेलकम टू द सेशन।
Thank you, sir. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes. So, Glenn and Tanisha, why don't you quickly give a brief about your background, starting with you, Glenn?
Yeah, thank you so much, sir. It's great to be here. To talk a little bit about myself, my name is Glenn Ruben D'Souza. I come from the coastal city of Mangalore in Karnataka. Currently, I'm pursuing marketing here at SIBM Pune. And on an educational front, I have a bachelor's degree in computer science engineering, post which I did my postgraduate degree in liberal studies from Ashoka University, the Young India Fellowship. So yeah, that's a little bit about my background.
Yes. How about you, Tanisha?
Hello, sir. My name is Tanisha Nagpal. I reside in Mumbai and I completed my undergraduation from NMIMS with a BBA in Branding and Advertising. Currently, I'm pursuing marketing at SIBM Pune and I'm a fresher. I did a 3 month internship after my course, after my BBA. So, yeah, that's about me. Apart from academics, I like to engage myself in painting.
Yes. Okay. So, just a moment, guys. Correct. Huh. So many questions that we have prepared. So first thing that comes to the mind is के 60 minutes 60 questions. क्या हमारी स्ट्रैटेजी होनी चाहिए, मतलब स्टूडेंट्स की क्या स्ट्रैटेजी होनी चाहिए कि वो ये 60 मिनट्स को सही से यूटिलाइज कर पाए, क्योंकि हमारा टारगेट है कि हमें 45 प्लस क्रॉस करना है। तो आपने कैसे किया था लास्ट ईयर जब आपने किया था? ग्लेन, हाउ डिड यू डू इट, इफ यू कैन जस्ट मेंशन दैट।
So, what I particularly did was because knew that SNAP was a 60-minute exam and you had 60 questions, so I tried to maximize my speed as well as looking at accuracy. So that's something that students miss because SNAP has negative marking. People miss that. Okay, let me mark all the questions so everything would work out. So that's something that students should not do, and that's something that I looked at particularly. And what I generally did was at that particular point, I tried to pick out sections that I was strong at. So when I looked at the paper, I knew that English was my strongest section. So I tried focusing on that section, try spending least amount of time in that section, and I spent the remaining time in the other section. So that way I was able to give ample time to the LR section as well as the quant section, and I was able to maximize my score. So that's something I did during the exam. But before the exam, what I tried to do was I tried to take as many mocks as possible. So
So Glenn, if
I
you can
tried to,
just mention
yeah,
some number, roughly how
okay.
many mocks had you taken?
So particularly snap mocks, I took around 25 to 30 mocks, and I generally what I spent was after I did a mock, I spent another 45 to 1 hour, 45 minutes to 1 hour analyzing these mocks. I tried to look at particular aspects where I was weak in, what were my strengths and what were my weaknesses, and I tried to introspect on that. So whatever I knew was my strength, I tried to focus on that and try to emulate that in the exam. And whatever I knew that was not solvable by me during those sessions, I knew that it would not be feasible for me to spend more time on those questions in the exam. So that's how I generally looked at it, and that's how I was able to score a good number of solve a good number of questions in the final exam. So that helped me during my preparation.
Okay, before we go ahead with Tanisha, Glenn, just want to understand a little bit about your mocks outcome. So, how many question you used to attempt in mocks, and what was your accuracy percentage?
So when I started giving mocks, because it was something new for me at that particular point, because I was giving cat mocks as well. So because it was like a 3 hour time for the cat mocks, but for Snap it was just a 1 hour. So I had to shift my perspective in that aspect itself. So I started off with a low mock score at the start itself because I was not prepared to give that 1 hour exam at that point. But once I gave my, like when I was done with my 10 to 15 mock, I was more comfortable with the pattern, with the time that was given and the 1 minute time that was required for each question. So I was more comfortable with that. So once I started giving more marks, I was able to increase my percentage. So in the start, I was able to score like say 20 marks out of 60. And then once I reached my 10th mark, I was able to score 35 to 40. And then once I gave finalized about my 25th to 30th marks, I was scoring above 45 itself. So that's when I knew that I was confident to emulate that in the final exam as well. So that was how I had actually gone through this entire process. So giving more mocks and analyzing actually helped me. So that was my experience.
Right. So, I mean, just to tell our learners, guys, we have Glenn, who is an engineer. At the same time, Tanisha is a non-engineer. So, yes, Tanisha, what was your strategy and how did you manage this 60 question in 60 minutes? How did you reach that particular score which is required to clear cutoff of SIBM?
So, my strategy was quite similar to Glenn's, but there are some differentiation points. So, even I used to start with my strongest section because I believe when you start with your strongest section, it builds confidence and momentum, and it gives you positive reinforcement as well. So, my strongest section was general English. So, my strategy was to start with that and try to finish that as soon as possible. And then my weakest section was quants. So for quants, what I did was I used to time myself per question initially. So and then if I was taking more time in one question, I used to analyze it and analyze why is it taking more time for me and is there any alternative solution to this, because there are a lot of tips and tricks you might find on YouTube or coaching institutes provide, which can help you solve the problems faster. So that is what I did. And while giving mocks, also, I think I gave around 20 to 25 mocks. I feel 20 to 25 mocks everyone should give, in my opinion. And I used to analyze them. I had an error book for myself, like if where I'm going wrong, I used to analyze where I'm going wrong, and I used to write those things down somewhere so that I don't repeat those mistakes again. As far as quants is concerned, I also had a formula sheet so that I can keep on revising those formulas. And I would also like to tell the future aspirants that um, like Snap is different from CAT. Like even if you're weak at quants, I feel it is achievable because some questions can be direct as well because it's a speed based test. So don't try to find when you're able to solve the question, don't doubt yourself that how am I able to solve it, because it can be a direct question. So that's what my strategy was.
Okay, so guys, one more question before we go ahead with sectional strategy. We'll discuss your strategy for each section separately. How did you manage to get good score in each section? But before that, I'm sure both of you would have appeared for CAT exam, right? So Glenn, you were talking that you mentioned that you got almost all IM calls. Can you just brief about that and then also tell the learners after your CAT exam? I mean, how did you manage for stamp? How much time you used to spend for stamp?
Yeah, I had actually scored a good percentile in last year's CAT, and I had calls from all IMs as well, and I had converted most of them as well. And to talk a little bit about my preparation after CAT, because there was a 15-day window period. So the preparation that I had actually studied for CAT helped me in the preparation for SNAP as well. There were certain sections that are new in CAT in SNAP, such as particularly in the LR section,
LR
there
section.
are new topics, as well as even in the verbal section, there is the grammar section that is not available in CAT. So that is something that I had to focus on. So I spent these 15 days, the first 1 week, to just revise on all of these topics, try to familiarize myself with the LR section itself, because I knew that critical reasoning was something new that actually comes in Snap. Particular topics like clocks and calendars or something new. So I try to focus on that. I spent a few hours a day just revising on these topics, learning these topics from YouTube channels and any material that I could find, and utilizing all of this. I spent 1 week just to do this. And once I was done, right, I spent the next 7 days, 7 to 10 days, just solving mocks and giving as much practice as I can to each of these sections. So in this 1 week, I was able to. I used to try to give at least 2 to 3 mocks a day, and because it was just a 1 hour mock, I used to just time it in the morning, in the afternoon, as well as in the evening. So that's what I used to do, and then I used to analyze everything. And once I knew that this is a topic that I was comfortable with, I should just leave it around. And any topic that I felt was very difficult for me and it took me more attempts to solve it, I used to go back and revise those topics again and again. Try to find shortcuts and tips and tricks on how to make it easier for me during my exam. So that's how I particularly did it. So just those 15 days I spent particularly on Snap after CAT.
Just one more question. How many mocks, I mean, at the maximum, how many mocks had you uh, of Snap you had taken in a single day during this 15 days window period? Was it a day when you took
So
three mocks in a day?
I took 4 mocks in a day because I was just, I thought, okay, let me just see what happens if I can just spend 4 hours just giving the exam. And that's what I tried to do. But it was fun at that point. But then
Okay.
after that, I realized that I should not be spending too much time on mocks itself. I should just spend, maybe give 2 to 3 mocks itself in a day and focus on just revising the topics and understanding the topics better. So that's what I had
द
done.
रीजन वाई आई आस्क दिस लिनस, क्योंकि आप में से भी काफ़ी लोग शायद जिन्होंने लेट प्रिपरेशन शुरू किया है, लेट स्नैप के लिए शुरू किया है, तो अगर आप लोग भी अगर एक नंबर ऑफ मॉक्स अचीव करना चाहते हो तो आप भी दिन में 2 से 3 मॉक्स का टारगेट सेट कर सकते हो, जैसे उसने भी लिखा था, तो आप भी ये चीज़ कर सकते हो. येस, कमिंग टू यू तनिषा. सो व्हेन डिड यू स्टार्ट थिंकिंग अबाउट स्नैप एग्जाम एंड व्हेन डिड यू एक्चुअली स्टार्ट स्नैप प्रिपरेशन? वाज इट बिफोर कैट एग्जाम और आफ्टर कैट एग्जाम?
So I was preparing for Snap before CAT. In the backend, I was preparing for Snap
अच्छा.
and giving mocks. So I would like to add that my CAT was not that great, and I got a little disheartened after giving CAT. But it is important to not lose hope because here I am at SIBM Pune. So I for my snap strategy was basically like there are some topics that are not covered in cat, like clocks, calendars, and as Glenn said, grammar. So I started with those initially, and what I used to do is I used to break down my day. So I used to pick up all three sections and do a bit of all the three sections. So for English, like if you're doing 10 idioms per day or 10 synonyms per day, for like basically LRDI, you're just taking clocks and calendars or just syllogisms. Like, don't try to cram too much information, don't try to set unrealistic goals. Like, I'll complete this topic as well and that topic as well, because it gets a little overwhelming. Try to solve a variety of questions of the topic that you are doing. So I would recommend that. And yeah, that was basically
How many
my
mocks had you
strategy.
taken in total?
So I've taken 20 to 25
20 to
mocks.
25, you mentioned that, right?
Yeah, yeah, I
Okay,
mentioned.
fine, I missed that part. Okay, guys, so
And
let's take it forward. And yeah, Tanisha, something do you want to add?
and my strategy was a little different. So I used to give one mock per day because I felt giving two was a little overwhelming for me. And
अच्छा.
on the days where I scored well, I used to give another mock. So one or two mocks per day was
Maximum two
good enough
mocks you
for
had
me.
taken. Correct.
Yeah. and I used to spend time analyzing those. So that
Right.
was my strategy.
Perfect, perfect. So I think those who think they are not good at quants, I mean, you can definitely follow the strategy that has been mentioned by Tanisha, and that, yeah, that should work. Now coming to the next part, now let's talk about the sectional strategy. For example, let's start with English section. There are 15 questions, and as you said, Glenn, that there are some new areas. I mean, there is grammar, there is vocabulary based question. So, did you come across any situation where you didn't know anything about those words? You are not familiar with those words or particular topic, and how did you manage those questions? If you would like to share some strategy.
So something that really helped me was growing up. I used to read a lot of books, so I did have a catch on most of the words that used to come. But there were some words which I was also not able to comprehend at that point. So what I used to do was every time that I used to figure out a new word that I used to read, I used to just check the meaning online or try to see what exactly does this word actually mean. So that helped me during the exam as well. And coming to the exam, there were particular aspects such as finding the meaning of the word, converting what is the synonym of words, as well as converting speech into different forms, as well as figures of speech was something that was new. So what I particularly did was I used to read a lot of blog posts. I used to read a lot of. I used to take a lot of YouTube videos that used to be there. So I used to prepare through YouTube videos. What exactly is the pattern of the paper? What are the entire topics that would come in? And I used to prepare along those lines itself, and that helped me. So I particularly knew what the kind of questions that would come in that section, and I used to prepare along those lines. And what particularly helped me was anything that I didn't know at that time, I used to just in the exam I used to just move on to the next question. So that helped me save time as well. So in the English section, I was able to maximize my score and reduce time in that aspect as well. So I was able to score. I was able to give at all 15, and I was able to score upwards of 12, 13 in every mock that I gave because of this aspect itself. So I was familiar with the questions, with the kind of things that used to come in, and that helped me in that section. So that's what I
Okay,
used
and
to.
if you can also mention about your LR strategy, because in LR there are questions, about 6 to 7 questions from critical reasoning, and most of the students have been mentioning this thing that critical reasoning is bit subjective. थोड़ा सा ये subjective होता है. तो did you also face that challenge when you were solving mock test? You used to interpret in certain way, and then when you used to look at the solution, the paper setter had completely different view. So how did you manage that?
So yeah, particularly the critical reasoning section, it as you mentioned, it is very subjective. It depends on how the how the paper setter is actually setting the paper, what is the thought process, and how you are analyzing and how you are interpreting the question. So when I started giving mocks, I was a bit confused as to what exactly is the thought process that I used to think would the question would come in. But what helped me was I used to try to find questions from previous year papers as well. So I used to look at critical reasoning questions from that and try to figure out what might come as well. And when I gave more marks, I was able to figure out certain patterns. And there would be, let's say, a bracket of questions that would fall under certain bracket. So I used to look at it in that perspective and I used to solve it. And the more questions that I solved in critical reasoning, I was able to make my brain understand, okay, this is a question, this is how it should be thought of. So that is how I particularly perceive the LR section, the critical reasoning section in LR. But the other topics such as clocks and calendars, there are shortcuts, there are tips and tricks that you can actually use to solve these questions in like 30 seconds itself. And so one thing that I used to always do in the input-output question, I used to always leave it because I knew that used to take almost 2 to 3 minutes of my time. So that was
Correct.
one question
That's
that
a
I used to
speed breaker
always skip.
actually.
Yeah, so I rather focused on the other section. The 2 to 3 minutes I could focus on the quant section. So I tried to just ignore that question if it ever came. And so I used to try it before when I used to give it in mocks, but then I knew that was not something that I wanted to spend my time in the final exam. So I just skipped that question. So that's how I looked at the entire LR
Yes.
section.
So Tanisha, what was your strategy for LR section? I mean, how many questions did you manage in the final snap exam, and how did you reach that number?
So for LR section, I feel in the LR section, there are already some patterns and connections and relations that you can identify in the question. So it is very important to identify those patterns. Like in a number series, you might notice there is some kind of pattern. So it is very important to notice that to improve your accuracy. Second, LR section, I feel elimination technique is also important. I feel for any section, elimination technique is very important. uh, like by look sometimes by looking at the options only, you can arrive at the correct answer and you might not even have to solve it so fully completely. So
Okay.
I feel that is important. Regarding the critical reasoning questions, for some people, yeah, there can be subjective answers, there can be questions that are ambiguous, but I feel it is very important to read the question stem. So it is very important to read the question properly and identify the keywords. And when you are reading the question, without looking, this is what my strategy was. Without looking at the options, you come up with a probable answer,
Okay.
and then you look at the options, and you might find your the answer you thought of in one of those options, or might be close to or similar on those lines. So that was my strategy, and that worked for me.
Okay. How many
So
question did you manage to attempt in actual snap, and what was your accuracy? What was your score in LR section?
I don't remember the exact figure, but I was able to solve multiple questions. Like I was able to solve quite a few questions.
Okay.
So
Most of the question you mean to say.
yeah, most of the questions.
Right. Did it happen to any of you that in LR section particularly, because this coding decoding series missing number questions are very tempting. Input output, everyone knows that you are not going to attempt if it's a lengthy question. Yeah, but this year it may be possible learners के इनपुट आउटपुट का क्वेश्चन काफ़ी सिंपल आ गया है, क्योंकि लोगों ने इतना हाइप बनाया है कि कोई अटेम्प्ट ही नहीं कर रहा है, तो शायद ये लोग भी ये वीडियो देख रहे होंगे और उन्होंने सोचा कि चलो इस बार सिंपल रख देते हैं. सो येस, प्लीज़ डू चेक द क्वेश्चन, बट अगर थोड़ा भी लेंदी लगता है तो आप छोड़ दें. बट बाकी के जो क्वेश्चन है ग्लेन एंड तनीषा, तो उसमें भी काफ़ी सारे क्वेश्चन में आपका इतना टाइम चला जाता है, तो क्या ऐसा कुछ आपके साथ में हुआ था कि आपने कोई ये क्वेश्चन में थोड़ा ज़्यादा समय स्पेंड कर दिया, या फिर मॉक की वजह से आप इतने अपनी स्ट्रैटेजी पे श्योर थे कि बिल्कुल आप कोई भी क्वेश्चन में फंसे नहीं थे उस दिन पे?
So what exactly happened was because I had given all three attempts of snap, I was
अच्छा.
actually I had the thought process in my mind. Even if I messed up the first section, I knew I had the other two slots to cover up. So I took the first slot in that aspect that I would I would test the water just to see how the paper would come, whether I would be able to utilize my strategy in that paper. So that's what I had done for the first slot. But then, particularly coming to questions like coding, decoding, sequence, and all that. So I already knew that there were certain patterns that I should look for. There were certain tricks that I should look at. So that's what I tried to do. But there were some questions where I was also stuck. And I used to take at least there was one question where I took 1.5 minutes and I was like, okay, what should I do now? So that pressure does come in the exam. But since I had completed the verbal section quicker, so I knew I had that cushion to fall back on. So I was confident that I would still cover up in the next two sections. So that was something that I had in the back of my mind. And even if I had spent a little over a minute, even in one question, I was confident that I still had enough time to solve all the questions. So that's what I looked at. That's how I looked at it.
Okay. Acha guys, if you can just tell learners, I mean, what can they expect this year according to you? For example, you have seen this NAB exam closely. You are part of the symbiosis now. तो इस साल मतलब क्या कोई चेंजेस एक्सपेक्टेड है, या इट विल बी ऑन द सिमिलर लाइन, सेम लेवल ऑफ डिफिकल्टी दैट दे कैन एक्सपेक्ट? इनफैक्ट 2022 में थोड़ा सा ज़्यादा डिफिकल्ट पेपर था और कट ऑफ नीचे गए थे. 2023 का जो स्नैप था वो थोड़ा इजी था, तो कट ऑफ आपके 44 प्लस चले गए थे. तो इस साल क्या एक्सपेक्ट कर सकते हैं, एंड व्हाट स्कोर शुड दे टारगेट?
So I would recommend that pattern हमेशा subjective हो सकता है, and I would recommend the learners to try to cover as much syllabus as possible and try to maximize their score. And there's also a misconception regarding the paper pattern that uh, first paper is easier than the second and the third is difficult, which is not true. So they're all on the same level. But it depends on the candidate also. Sometimes you know, एक paper में you might find general English easier, second paper, so it's quite subjective. So
2022 में ऐसा हुआ था थोड़ा सा, बिकॉज आई एम टीचिंग दिस सब्जेक्ट, सो या थोड़ा स्लॉट वन थोड़ा सा इजी डिज़ाइन हुआ था अक्रॉस द बोर्ड स्टूडेंट्स, ये कहा। बट 2023 में मुझे जो पता है, टू स्लॉट वन ऐसा कुछ एकदम से इजी था और स्लॉट थ्री डिफिकल्ट था, ऐसा नहीं था, राइट? सो एज यू सेड, यू शुड नॉट कैरी एनी परसेप्शन, करेक्ट?
yeah, you should not carry a preconceived notion in mind because that brings a bias also. So I would suggest that give all three attempts and give all three attempts in a way that they are all equal and at par. So
या
Also, a lot of people get that bias in their mind कि मतलब एक slot आसान होगा तो I will just give this slot, and so that's something that you should not go in. Like at one time even I thought, okay, maybe this slot might be easier, but then that's not the case at all. So you can never expect how the paper to come. You can never expect what exactly is going to come, particularly the pattern. So a lot of people say that RCs don't come, but you never know when RCs might come in as well. So that is something that you should try to see in the particular paper. You should try to solve as much as you can, try to learn as much as you can, and just go prepared for the exam, because you never know what's going to come. So it's better to be prepared than sorry later on.
Okay. Yeah. Now let's come to the next part. I mean, con part. Yes, you have already briefed them that you need to cover all the topics, and yeah, you can save time in English and other sections so that you can spend a little more time on con. But still, before we go ahead with the selection process of SIBM, would you like to give certain tips, Glenn, about quant, if you can?
Yeah, sure. So, as an engineer, I was pretty confident in my quant skills as well. But one thing that is different in the SNAP exam is we also have the data interpretation and data sufficiency section in the section itself. So that is one place that you can try to solve. So data sufficiency questions are very important, and I had practiced a lot of those questions, and that actually helped me. Last year, I'm not very certain whether DI questions had come in, but that is also a very important part because you can maximize your score there, because there would be a graph that would be given and you'd be able to analyze it, and you'd be able to, once if you have the entire graph solved, the questions are very easy to solve. So that's something that you should also look at. And any of the topics that you've already studied. So the topics that you must have studied for CAT will obviously help in the quant section. So that is one section that you can feel confident in because you might have already studied the topics. It's all about revision at that particular point. So what I did was, since I had already studied for CAT, I already knew that my quants was on a good enough level. So I used to revise the data interpretation and data sufficiency part. So that was something new, and that's what I focused on. And once I gave mocks, I knew that, okay, I was comfortable in that section and tried to, and because the questions are not as difficult as the CAT paper, it is easier to solve as well. So I was able to solve them under a minute, and that helped me maximize my score in the quant section. So that's how I looked at it in that paper, in that section.
Fine. Now let's talk about the selection process. Glenn, if you can quickly brief us about the complete selection process and what learners should be, how should learners prepare? Because yeah, they are focusing on Snap right now, but somewhere they have this thing in their mind that they'll have to clear this part later on. So what? I mean, if you can just make them aware about the complete selection process
Yeah,
and the
sure.
important dates too.
Yes, sure. So we at SIBM Pune, we have two particular processes that happen. So firstly, it is your SNAP exam that happens. So you get a particular score from your SNAP exam. So since you have three exams that you're giving, the highest score will be considered for your final percentile. So say if you have scored 40, if you have scored 40 in the first paper, 45 in the second paper, and 50 in the third paper, your highest score of 50 will be considered for your final percentile. So that is what it will consider. So 50% of your score will come from your SNAP exam, and 50% will come from your GEPI process. So the GEPI process is the group exercise and the personal interview. So the group exercise is a process where it would be a collaborative assessment where you'd be in a group of say 8 to 10 people, and you'd be given a case study or a particular problem, and you'd have to focus on collaboration, leadership, coming together as a group and coming to a solution. So that is the entire process that happens in a group exercise. And then we have the personal interview. So this is where you have a one-to-one interaction with the interviewer, where you can talk about yourself, you can talk about your skills, your personality. So this is where you should be able to leverage your individualism. So the 50% comes from a GEPI. So combining all of this, so 50% for Snap score and 50% for GEPI process. So we don't have any weightage for academics, we don't have any weightage for work experience. So
There's
everyone
nothing
stands
like
on an
background
equal ground.
diversity, gender diversity, and
Yes.
all, right?
Yes, so everyone is on an equal ground. It depends on your snap score as well as your GEPI process.
I think this
So
is the
you should,
best part. Right. I'm sorry
yeah,
to interrupt. Yeah, Glenn, but just want to quickly once again emphasize on this that there are many students who feel that my academics are poor. I don't have work experience. I'm a fresher. I don't have any extracurricular activity. Will I be able to get any top B school? And here is one of the college where the placement figures are really good. And guys, everything is dependent on how you perform in Snap exam and how you perform in group exercise and personal interview. Right. Go ahead, Jay.
yeah. And all of these rounds are entirely online, so you can give it from the comfort of your home, so you don't have to go anywhere. So the GEPI process happens in two phases. So the first phase happens from 5th to 9th of February, and the second phase happens from the 12th to 16th of February. So you can book your slots as per as your convenience. Once you get an offer to attend the GEPI process from SIBM Pune, you get to select your slot. So that's how it entirely works. So it's a very interesting process that happens in the GEPI process as well. So it's a very fun experience. Personally, for me, I had a very great time. So candidates can expect something very interesting, and they don't have to worry about whether they have low academics, whether they are freshers, whether they have work experience or not. Work
Can you also
experience
tell
does.
us what kind of activity did you you had to perform during group exercise? I mean, what were asked in your group exercise? If you can just
So
brief
it
about
was
that.
Yeah, it was a particular case study that was given where we had to come together as a group. We had to discuss on possible solutions, and it also tests about our general knowledge. It tests about what we know about business as well. So, but majorly what it actually tests about is your collaborative effort, how you work together in a team, what are your leadership capability, how you are able to come together as a group. So that's what particularly the GE process works. And it was a great experience for me. I went back thinking that, okay, this was something new that I had not given, because a lot of other B schools have group discussions where there's a topic given and you just have to just talk about any particular thing. So this was more of a team effort. So that actually showcased my personal skills, how I could command a team, how I could put forth my ideas while taking in other criticism as well as taking in other opinions as well. So that's something that candidates should actually be looking forward to. And the PI process was very interesting. You can never expect what the interviewer would ask. So since I had work experience, so questions can come from work experience. So it depends from. So even if you have work experience, what generally happens is it won't count towards any of your weightage, but it can act as a talking point in the interview. So that's something that you should actually look at. So anything that you have, let it be extracurriculars, work experience, or any other thing that you feel is valid enough that you can talk about in your personal interview, you should be able to talk about that. So that's how you drive the personal interview.
Yes, and Tanisha, how was your GE experience? Because interview students are aware, and I'm sure they'll be prepared for that. But group exercise, so what kind of group exercise did you face? Okay, just briefly tell us about your experience.
So it was similar to Glenn's. It was a case study. We had to come up with solutions. Glenn has already focused on the how is his GPI experience. I think I would like to focus more on the preparation strategy.
Sure.
So for GEPI, basically, you need to be aware of what's happening around you. You need to have general knowledge. So what I used to do is, while traveling, you can go through in shorts, and I used to have mock like group exercise, group discussions with my friends. So that really helped me. I used to discuss things with my dad regarding what's happening, what's today's news. So that really helped me. And while we were having discussions among friends, because my friends were also preparing for MBA exam entrance exams. So um, you can have discussions with them. They will provide you feedback. You can provide them feedback. So that really helps. And in PI, it is very important to drive conversations. Don't treat it as an interview. It's very important to drive conversations and have talking points. So that really worked for me. And regarding Snap, I think I forgot to mention this, but I just got reminded of it. Whenever, so for example, your slot is at 7 a.m. in the morning. So I would like to tell candidates, please mentally condition yourself. Many candidates have an habit of giving mocks in the late in the night. If your slot is at 7 a.m. in the morning, please try giving
This time it
slots.
is at 2 p.m., by the way. So
No,
there are two slots
I'm
this
just
time
giving
on
an
a particular
example.
day, 2 p.m. to 3 p.m., and then I think the 4 to 5 p.m., something like that. So there are two slots.
Yeah, I'm just giving an example, like
Correct.
mentally condition yourself according to your
Absolutely.
timing.
Yeah.
So that would really help. And I would also like to mention that SNAP results will be out on 8th of Jan, and the GEPI shortlist will be out on 20th January. And Len has already mentioned about the phase 1 and phase 2. So,
Great,
yeah.
great. And tomorrow is the last date to apply to SIBM, 7th December. So all those who haven't applied, guys, my suggestion to you is check your mock scores, understand where you are going to land, and accordingly apply to the colleges of symbiosis, because there are some 15, 16 colleges. So you need to be cautious. Every form, every college that you are applying incurs cost. So be thoughtful and yeah, be rational before you make any decision. So, yeah, once again, thank you, Glenn and Tanisha, for sharing your insights. I'm sure learner would have many points to take away, and looking forward to have more interactions after Snap exam once they'll be actually gearing up for GE and PI. So thanks everyone for joining us, and yeah, make sure that you all have hit the like button for our guest. One like for guest, guys. Yes,
Thank you for having us, sir. It was a
my
pleasure
pleasure.
meeting you. And I would like to say all the best to everyone giving SNAP this year. So, all the best, everyone.
Thank you once again. Thanks. Bye bye. Good night.
Thank you, sir. Thank
Bye
you.
bye, everyone. See you.